I think we'll kick us started. Thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you all have enjoyed the morning programming. We had a sustainable energy infrastructure as well as creating opportunities for microfinance and the future in ESG investing. So now we'll want to welcome these NUImpact alumni and to see how they kind of carry NUImpact and how they kind of shape where they are in their career today. So feel free to take it away, Mindy. Thank you for moderating, and thank you everyone for coming in. Share your impact and how you grow along the way in your career path.
Thanks, Natasha. So I'm Mindy. I'll be the moderator for today's panel. We'll start off with introductions, and then we'll kind of go into 4 parts. The first one we'll have the panelists talk about their involvement at Northeastern and NUImpact and kind of how that's shaped their thinking about post-grad life. And then we'll jump into, how to prepare for full-time, the job interview process, any tips and tricks, and then into kind of their full-time life transitioning to the workforce, any advice they have, their experience with what I know a lot of you guys have experienced during co-op is a hybrid in and out of the office or virtually. How do you integrate into the office? And then we'll leave it to a Q&A and kind of keep this a little informal, because I think this is something that's really helpful. I know it was helpful for me when I was a student to just learn about other people's experiences. Everyone has a different path. So it's always good to get perspective there. So I'll start off with introductions, and then I'll have each of our panelists kind of go through a quick overview of their background. So as I said, I'm Mindy. I was a class of 2017 finance and accounting. I'm a co-founder of NUImpact. I did a couple co-ops. I did one in accounting, and then I did one in finance at Goldman, which I ended up staying for full-time post-grad for about 2.5 years. And then last year, literally right before the pandemic and the market crashed, my whole team at Goldman, we moved over to UBS. So I've been there for about a year. And then in terms of something a little fun, I want all the panelists to kind of mention too, is in the past year, what's something fun, or what's your newest favorite quarantine hobby that you've picked up in the past year? And for me, it's a lot of banana bread, because I'm not really good at, I guess, measuring how many bananas you need for the week. And then a lot of, jump roping and trying to do FaceTime, calling my dog in between Zoom calls. Those are probably my favorite quarantine hobbies. So I'll have, does anyone want to kick it off? Maybe Tess, do you want to start with your intros and we'll just go around?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Tess. I just graduated May 20th as a finance concentration, the minor in social entrepreneurship. I did 3 co-ops while I was at school, one at GE, one at Jefferies, and one at Hercules Capital, which is a venture debt fund, which I rejoined full-time last summer. During quarantine, I've been really boring and mostly working, but I have been gotten to spend a lot of time with family, which has been nice. Trying to exercise more, all that good stuff.
Hi everyone, I'm Aram. I graduated December 2019, studied econ and finance. Northeastern, I did 2 co-ops. So first one was at PwC, second one was at Morgan Stanley in prime brokerage, and then followed that up with a 3rd internship at a sort of late stage tech startup called Thumbtack, where I'm now full-time in the analytics department. In terms of quarantine hobbies, I'd say picked up piano. I used to play as a kid, and so I think it's been nice to sort of just pick it back up and be at home and have the time to do that. And then also gotten pretty into plants recently, so definitely expanded my knowledge of indoor plant care.
I can go next. So my name is Katrina Hazy. I'm a class of 2020 graduate. I studied international affairs at Northeastern. I did my first 2 co-ops in Latin America, actually, in Ecuador and in Cuba. Did a quick internship at the State Department one summer, and then did my final co-op at McKinsey, kind of working in public sector. I was strategic director my final year at NUImpact, and my current job, Starlink market access analyst at SpaceX. Starlink is SpaceX's satellite internet service. I started about 4 months ago, and in terms of quarantine hobbies, I don't think that I have many. probably just like watching a lot of really bad reality television. But yeah, that's all I've been up to.
I can go next. So hi, my name is Joanna. I also graduated in May 2020 with a degree in finance and entrepreneurship. I currently work at a venture capital firm in the Bay Area called Sosa Ventures. It's focused on growth stage companies where we help expand to Asian markets. So kind of the impact has been really helping me being in the community was that there's a lot of gaps between knowledge about VCs in Asia, how to make good investments or where to invest and how to partner with startups. So I've been really working towards that, which has been really, really exciting. For me, my quarantine activity that I've kind of gained was I was not a runner at all. I just hated running, but now I'm starting to run. I don't know why. So exercise is something I try to put in.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan. I got hop in next. So my name is Ryan Lee. I graduated Northeastern in 2016. I did international business in East Asian Studies track, the China specific track. And then I did my concentration in finance. So I ended up doing my first co-op at MFS. My second co-op when I was in Beijing, I did at a strategy consulting company, helping people move into the Chinese market and helping Chinese companies move externally into different international markets. And then I came back to Northeastern, and then I helped pilot the Masters in International Management program that they have now. And I did that instead of doing a third co-op. And then after that, that's when I ended up coming to Advantage Capital, which is a multi-strategy impact investment fund. We do a little bit of venture, we do a little bit of private equity, we do some sub-debt lending as well, and do some venture debt lending as well, all with kind of the goal of growing businesses in low-income areas around the country. So for the last 4.5 years, I've been sourcing, underwriting, and now spending a lot of my time fundraising for the firm. Oh, and quarantine activity. I always like to cook a lot. I've definitely stepped that up since COVID. And then the other thing that I never did before regularly, I've been going on bike rides like 10 miles a day, which I love and kind of reminds me of being a little kid again.
Great. I can go next if everyone can hear me. So hi everyone, my name is Reshma and thank you so much for having me here today. I also graduated from Northeastern in 2020 with a major in international business finance and currently relocated back to Tokyo, Japan, where I work for Morgan Stanley as an ISG finance analyst, mainly covering interest rates for the fixed income division. I co-opted at Bain Capital and an ESG startup firm before coming full-time. And during NUImpact, I helped to organize the first Sustainable Investing Summit in 2019. And as for my quarantine activity, I would have to say I'm really into excessive cleaning. And it's been going well, but I think my parents are trying to exploit me these days. So I'm just, it's unfortunate, but that's what it is. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you all. I'm glad to hear that you all have developed very healthy, positive quarantine hobbies. And as you can see, everybody, everyone has a different path, different majors, concentrations, experiences. And so I kind of want to jump into people's origin stories. How did they end up where they are? And I think it's kind of strange to call it an origin story because we're all at the beginning of our careers, but it's such a big milestone to get your first job and to think through all those kind of existential questions about who you are, what do you want to do, what are you good at? And that's the time is now that you're in college to have those thoughts and conversations and to get some perspective. So my question to the panel is, I'd like to know kind of what's your origin story? Where did you start in college? Was your path winding? Did you know exactly what you want to do? And did NUImpact help you navigate those questions at all? So if anyone wants to start, you can feel free to take it.
I can kind of tell my story from the beginning of college. That would be helpful. My first few years of school, I kind of wasn't so sure what I wanted to do career-wise or even major-wise. I came in freshman year in the College of Social Sciences as an econ major, and then kind of switched over to the business school my sophomore year when I started looking for co-ops and what I might want to pursue there, and realized it was probably something having to do with business. So I just switched over to that school. I wanted to try corporate finance for my first co-op, so I ended up working at General Electric in their FP&A team for the aviation business. It's kind of like doing the budgets for all the planes and all the projects, which is really cool. But then for my second co-op, I kind of wanted to switch over to the investment side of finance to see if maybe there's something there. A lot of my friends and like peers in classes were getting into maybe like investment banking or stuff like that. So I took a second co-op at Jefferies in New York, kind of in the middle office team doing support for the equity derivatives sales and trading teams. And that was really fun, and I enjoyed it. And like my first co-op, I learned a lot, but it didn't really like speak a ton to me, as in like, this is what I want to do after school or for my career. So at the same time on campus, I'm kind of starting to discover the idea of impact investing. I take classes in social entrepreneurship and declare a minor in that, and really love the idea of kind of business for good. But the career options, kind of especially entry-level ones, seem kind of nebulous. It wasn't totally clear on how I could actually pursue that professionally. But then enter NUImpact around my fourth year, I discover a group of kids on campus trying to raise a fund to invest in businesses around Boston that are focused on social or environmental change. So I joined the team and everything kind of clicked. I had an amazing experience with the NUImpact team, kind of my fourth and fifth years. We were able to work with so many cool teams around Boston, trying to solve different problems through business. We learned from different accelerators and incubators and some local VCs. And then we were ultimately able to kind of raise the funds to complete first investment last year, which was super exciting. And all these experiences kind of showed me that this space, kind of venture investing, is something that I really enjoy, and it's what I wanted to pursue as a career. I kind of skipped over this, but my third co-op was at Hercules Capital, which I touched on earlier. It's a venture debt fund. So we provide kind of flexible debt financing in the form of term loans to tech and life sciences companies. So most of those companies are kind of down the runway, like SaaS businesses, think like SeatGeek or Campaign Monitor or Postmates, kind of fast growing tech companies. We're also getting into sustainability ventures. So we have recently done Impossible Foods, and we just closed an investment in an ag tech company called Pivot Bio. Myself and a few others on the team are definitely pushing the sustainability agenda within the firm. But it's kind of been a winding path, but it's been really rewarding to get to kind of try out different things in college, work with all the amazing people at NUImpact, and end up somewhere that I'm happy now and learning more and more every day. So it's been good.
Tess. And maybe Katrina, do you want to hop on this question as well? I know how you ended up at SpaceX, and kind of you were very involved in NUImpact as well as all the other folks on this call.
Yeah, of course. I've had such a winding path over the course of my undergrad experience. I was someone who really entered school leaning very heavily into this idea of social impact, but really seeing it through kind of your traditional policy lens. I studied international affairs. I spent my first two co-ops in Latin America, but it was towards kind of my last year when a friend approached me of NUImpact and introducing what purposeful capital could be. And I think that really reframed my understanding of, you can achieve social good through various different means. And sometimes, frankly, having capital and working through business innovation may be the most direct way to do so. And so that was really incredible for me to kind of worked through NUImpact to gain this business education, quote unquote, that really reframed not only how I thought about how I could achieve social impact, but also my own skill set. I've really never taken any business classes, and I really learned a lot of how I approach these topics through NUImpact, which has been really helpful in my job. At SpaceX, I work on this market access team, which a lot of what we're doing is trying to size markets and think about different business models which may be able to cater to that specific market. And I feel so much more fluent and kind of able to advocate for my beliefs and marry, you know, my own experience working in Latin America, but frame it in a way which can speak to, you know, leadership within the company. So that's been really compelling. And then I also think at NUImpact, it just taught me to have this mindset of implementation and innovation, being an entrepreneur, not only in terms of you know, creating a business, but being an entrepreneur within a team and advocating for the points that you want and what you think will lead the team to success. I think that that's a trait that has really rewarded me in my career. It's really aligned with what we do at SpaceX, and I totally attribute kind of my success and the direction I've gone in to NUImpact. So if I have any advice to give anyone listening on this panel, is to take a winding path. Like, it's going to all of these quirks, you doing things because you see value in it. It does have value in it. It's so much more rewarding than kind of going on this set path, because you're going to be a more diverse candidate. You're going to be able to speak compellingly to why you're a valuable candidate. And also it's going to be rewarding. So yeah, that was my little soapbox about winding paths. I love them.
I totally agree, and that resonates because my path was winding, and I think my winding path led to kind of the founding of NUImpact. I started in the design school, I moved into the business school, picked up accounting, finance, was looking for a way to pair doing well with doing good, and finding resources on campus when I was trying to start a like a little nonprofit social enterprise, and the whole world of social finance opened up to me, and I was like, we need something like this on campus. We need students to learn about this. I think this resonates with our generation, and it would be great to have a platform or a community where students that are like-minded come together and learn together, whether they go on into impact investing or it just transforms the way they see the world and how they consume and how they are just citizens of our planet. And that like leads me to my second question is, during your time in NUImpact, what experiences were presented that kind of helped you think through like college and kind of helped your college experience? And I'll open that up to anybody who wants to talk about the community and events.
Yeah, I can jump in. I think, first of all, I just want to say totally echo also, Katrina, everything you said, and Mindy, you added on. I think that's a common feeling that all of us feel throughout college, and in the moment it can feel like you're going down this path that maybe you wasted a little bit of time on, but in hindsight, I think it always helps to have that experience and to have gone through it. And with NUImpact, I think what it really provided, first, Mindy, you touched on this, is just a community where you meet with other students that, you know, maybe care about the same issues as you or different issues, but want to put in the time and kind of the thinking to try to get involved as a student, both as a student and as a resident of Boston, because NUImpact, you know, clearly has that local focus. And so I think those were two values that were important to everyone involved with NUImpact, and I think that definitely brought us together and helped us advance. So what it really taught us as we iterated on this idea of what NUImpact actually was and what we wanted it to be in the Northeastern community and the Boston community, is that it taught us to be really tenacious. I think there wasn't a clear sort of framework for what we were meant to be. There were other funds at different universities doing the same thing, more so at the grad level, a couple at the undergrad level, but we wanted it to be unique. We wanted to put our own Northeastern spin on it. And so I think that took a couple of different iterations, and I think it's still iterating as it should. But it really taught us to put our heads together and put in the time to think through what could be successful and to try different things out. The other thing I think it taught us to do is to take advantage of our network. there were so many people in the Boston community, both at Northeastern and externally as well, that were willing to help us. And all we had to do was reach out. There were lawyers we worked with. There were people at different investing funds, and even from the lineup at this event, I think you can tell there's a lot of people willing to get involved and to help students out. So I think it really did teach us to take advantage of that and to hone into help students out, and particularly in a mission-driven organization like this. And then on the student side, I think what really helped me is that NUImpact is definitely interdisciplinary in the types of students that join. There were students from the business school, from the engineering school, and so it was really interesting to have that well-rounded academic background. And I think that's helped me a lot at work. I work with a lot of different kinds of people: engineers, analysts, designers, PMs. So being able to kind of think through how others might be approaching a problem and to really hear them out and listen to them and then contribute your own viewpoint and work together, I think that's a valuable skill I developed at NUImpact for sure, and have carried over.
It's very obvious, like we have a lot of people from all different majors kind of weighing in and giving that extra perspective. I mean, we're not going to solve the world's problems just with finance folks. Yeah. Just to be honest, we wish, but that's not the reality. We need everybody from every different sector to come in and weigh on these problems that we're facing today. And Reshma, why don't you jump in? I saw you had a few comments to add too.
Kind of adding on to Aaron's point, like I felt that, working when you're in NUImpact, you really understand how to approach things more diversely, and especially working with the culture. And from my personal experience, for example, when I was organizing with my team the panels on the Sustainable Investing Summit, I was actually very, very shocked to see in how many different eclectic ways sustainability can be approached across like the various industries. And I was so unaware that I originally thought that finance was just like investment banking and like money making, but I was very pleasantly surprised to see that no, there are a lot more options. And I just love the way sustainability like blended together like different industries, and you will probably see that across all the different panels today. So I think NUImpact provided the opportunities to approach issues from different perspectives, and I know that definitely gave me a leg up approaching like the careers, and I know that it really kind of broadens your perspective, and in a general sense too. It's not just about sustainability. So I think it was a real privilege, and being in it and NUImpact really shaped, I think, the person that I am today, and working with like such a great, hardworking and inspiring people.
Thank you. And I'm going to shift over to kind of the next stage, which I'm sure a lot of you, if you're seniors, you're starting to think about, oh, I'm graduating soon. What am I going to do after college? Or even if you're not a senior and just regular co-op, you go through job search every single year. So I want to ask the panel kind of, how did you approach job search, and what were the routines you've set in place? Were there goals that you set? How did you tackle this task?
Sure, I can jump in. I think Northeastern really helps through the process for looking jobs from your advisors, professors, class, and seniors from your organization. So I think it's been a really good community. And also for a lot of the seniors that are listening, I guess by this third co-op or second co-op, you kind of, I think, understand what you kind of like. Because for us, as all we have been the first co-op, it's just like a first trial. So you don't know what you really like, and maybe you wanted to do finance, you wanted to do something else. So by the time the third time around, I think you just kind of know what you like and don't like, and what the kind of people that you kind of want to work with. But I think it's also important to have a goal. For example, okay, this week I'm going to apply for this many or reach this many. And it doesn't have to be a lot. You just keep track of it. As long as you're doing the best as you can, and trying your best, I think that's okay. And I think some people are living from home, and you get pressure from your parents, like, hey, like, how's it going? And but I think that just just not just always pushing yourself. And Northeastern students are very motivated, so I don't think that's a big of a problem, but I think you'll be fine.
Thanks, Joanna. And maybe Reshma, you recently just went back to Tokyo, to your hometown, to start your full-time job. How did you approach getting a job overseas, and were there any troubles? Did you know you wanted to go back home? What was your process there?
That's a great question. I think coming to America, like I was really shocked by the culture, because in Japan, like everyone's super polite and there's like so much like protocols. And I think when applying to jobs, like I wanted to keep my options open, but I also kind of really missed, like growing up in Japan, like I really missed that environment too, because here you have to be kind of really outspoken and upfront, and I don't know if I was ready to make that big step yet, but I think just being open and applying to like a variety of opportunities was really good, and that helped a lot. And I think that what really helped me was, everyone says that you need to start searching for jobs in your senior year, but I think if you start the year before, I started searching for my third year. That gave me a lot more like time and more space to search for opportunities that I was more interested in and prevent burnout. So I'd strongly like urge anyone to like start searching early and like just to try and test the waters out a little bit. And I think NUImpact was really helpful, because attending the events and like, you know, speaking to the panelists about their careers and like how they ended up there, and knowing that, okay, it wasn't very linear, but it was more of like a jungle gym type journey, like knowing that comforted me and like allowed me to go for, you know, like like just apply for a variety of roles. So I strongly recommend just like going to like any event and like just openly asking questions and trying to create those interactions, so you know that, you know, there's a support system.
That's great advice. And yeah, starting early never hurts. Something that I learned when I was a co-op looking for full-time, it was a co-op at Goldman, thinking about full-time. Someone told me, one of my mentors at the company told me, you know, you're never going to get anything that you don't ask for. And so in my fourth co-op, what I started to say to my advisors, or I mean, the management in the middle of my co-op was like, hey, I'm kind of interested in working full time. Like, how have people been successful in transitioning to full time? And, you know, putting in their minds that this is something I want and expressing that interest. And even though they weren't hiring for full time yet, it wouldn't be until 5 months later that they'll call me back and be like, I know you're interested in full time. Do you want to come in for a super day? So plant your seeds early and always start thinking, being proactive and thinking ahead. And then now I want to kind of talk about, how do you stand out on paper? So let's say you've got your resume done. How do you really stand out in a stack of hundreds of resumes? And once you get the interview, how do you make a good impression?
Take a first crack at that. So I'm a bit biased here, and I also think it's important to think like everything that we're saying here are all our individual stories, right? And you're trying to see some type of pattern recognition of, okay, this is what they went through, this is their situation, and this is how they were able to deal with it. And in my case, like, you know, my first co-op was MFS. My second one was a strategy consulting company called Roland Berger Strategy Consultants, which is a huge thing in Europe and fairly large consultancy in Asia, but not really a big brand name in the US. And Northeastern is a growing brand name, but at the type of jobs that I was applying for, I didn't always feel that it was recognized as such. So what I'm trying to say is, I had a lot of difficulty getting out of that 1 out of 600 applications in the packet. And the way that I pushed my way through it, and the only thing that I found to be successful, was finding Northeastern alumni on LinkedIn, or alumni from my high school on LinkedIn, or any type of connection that I could draw to a person on LinkedIn that was in the seat that I wanted to be in. And just exactly what Rishma said, like I started doing this towards the end of junior year in anticipating that this is going to take a lot longer than the traditional route, because I have to build these connections with these people because I'm reaching out cold in the first place. They don't know me. Sometimes they might think that, you know, like there's a connection through Northeastern or something like that, kind of making it up as I went. So that really, having an advocate at the company, especially if it is somebody within that role or within that team, is huge. And that has been my biggest success in getting interviews in the past. And then as somebody who has interviewed people since coming to Advantage, both co-ops, interns, full-times, and this is again, a little bit biased to me, but I understand that everybody might not have the opportunity to get the direct experience for the job. So what I like to look at is, okay, what did they do in their past jobs that show either soft skills or hard skills that they might have developed that are transferable? And to the degree that someone, especially a student, is showing me that they're pursuing their interests with activities outside of class, like something like NUImpact, or that, you know, they have in their interest section below some type of side project that they worked on, that personally speaks volumes to me, because I'm like, okay, this person cares enough about this type of work to be doing it outside of their 9 to 5 or their school time. That kind of de-risks them not being a fit for the role for me in a very material way. So that's how you kind of jump off on the page. And I don't know if it was part of the same question, Mindy, but in person and in the interview, I just really like it when people ask a lot of questions, because again, it's showing that they care enough to try and understand if you are the right fit for them and if this is the type of job that they want to have. And that brings a different level of interest in general, in my opinion.
Point about the questions too, because I've interviewed a lot of co-ops and, you know, full-time, and if you think about it, questions are the last section of your interview. And if you have really good questions, that's what your interviewer is going to remember, that you were thoughtful. And it wasn't just something that you Googled questions to ask at the end of the interview. And even better, what impresses me is if someone can ask a question about something that I mentioned earlier in the interview. And to the next level, usually on super days, you have multiple interviews back to back. If you can ask the next person about a question that you had from the previous person, they talk about it. And that's also really impressive. So that's such a great point. And Katrina, do you want to kind of talk about how you got to SpaceX too, and like kind of the process?
Yeah, for sure. I love that you bring up questions, Ryan, because I 100% feel that the reason why I have the job at SpaceX now is because of the questions I asked, especially if it's a role where you may not tick 100% of the boxes. Like the role I'm in right now, I talk about satellites all day and radio frequency, which for some of the folks on this panel who know me, that is like a big 180 from who I was or what I knew in undergrad. But I approached that interview process, well, I guess kind of going back in terms of, I graduated in 2020. I was not as thoughtful as Ryan and Reshma in preparing a year in advance in terms of my job search. So the pandemic rolled around and I was trying to network and find jobs in terrible job market. And so this question of networking is really so important. And I know you hear it from everyone, but I think that what really changed my thinking about the question of networking is that it's just building relationships. It doesn't need to be transactional. It could literally just be you trying to pick this person's brain and get some insight. In terms of how I found the role at SpaceX, I really, really recommend joining like industry groups. There's some great groups on Facebook, LinkedIn, about whatever it is that you may be interested in. So that's where I originally found this role. Just hit up the person. They sent my resume to the hiring manager and I got an interview. I think that in terms of having your resume stand out, the winding path is really it. There may be plenty of candidates that kind of have that traditional experience, but if you can be an interesting candidate and you can show passion, I think that at least people are going to be like, okay, let's interview her. Let's see what she's about, even if she doesn't tick all of these boxes. But then once I actually got the interview, I was like a crazy person in terms of preparing. So I just tried to study everything I could know about the company, about the technology, about really what folks in the industry were talking about. And when I say that I prepared, like, I was FaceTiming my friends who were engineers so that they could explain to me what these different technical facets were. And from there, just at least having these conversations with like mentors or folks who could speak well to what it is that the technology, the service, the platform is about, I could really identify what were quote unquote smart questions and quote unquote like more obvious questions to ask. And then I came to my interviewers with an incredible roster of just questions that had arisen from conversations of folks within my network. So when I was chatting with my interviewers, I could ask really compelling questions that has shown not only have I done my research, I'm smart, I'm entrepreneurial, and by the time I get on the job, even if I need to learn more, I've already demonstrated an ability to get up to speed and learn. So I 100%, if it weren't for the questions I'd asked in my interviews, I don't think that I would have gotten the job at SpaceX. I can say that without a shadow of a doubt.
That's a great example. And it's really nice to hear too that you leaned on your community, your friends, other people in the industry to help prepare for that interview. And for that, that's like just test runs of how do you talk about topics that you're going to talk about in the interview. So why not do it? And everyone's available during kind of quarantine Zooms, FaceTimes, and they probably would love to get some social interaction. So hit up your friends, your engineering friends too. So I want to shift over to full-time. This is all relevant. I think we recently all started jobs in the past few years, or even during COVID. What was it like onboarding during quarantine and kind of work from home or a hybrid model? I know a lot of co-ops might be doing a hybrid model, or some full-times are just doing fully remote. That's a different set of challenges. So could someone talk about their experience?
Yes, I can talk about my experience during my transition and COVID. I'm sure everyone has their own experience, during transition of COVID, like working from home, maybe like working in a different location or different time zone. But for me, it was also when I moved to California during the wildfires were happening. So, and also, my package got lost, and it was just not a really smooth transition at all. But making sure that making changes is always intimidating. So, and I didn't really get used to it being from student life, but definitely talking with your managers. And I know it sounds really cheesy, but time management is really, really important. Just communicating with your team and being like, oh, this is the way I kind of like to work. These are the things I'm interested about during my jobs. Just being always communicating about it. I know it's kind of difficult being on Zoom, but definitely your team will help you if you kind of speak out what you kind of want to get out of it. I think that's really, really important. And when you're working with your team, some people have their own style of they like it this way or this way. So just communicating just with your managers really, really important. And yeah.
And Joanna, did you proactively make these meetings to express your interest in what you want to do at the company, or did they reach out to you?
In both ways. I think I also was being more proactive on what I want, and you can always change what you kind of want. Like, for example, for me, I want to do more, learn more about investing and how can I make my own deals. And everyone has their style of investing, their investing styles. So I just kind of wanted to learn more about it and talk with different team members to see how what their investing style is like.
Got it. Thanks. And Tess, do you want to talk about your experience? I know you've been home and working remotely. What was that like for you?
Yeah, for sure. Transitioning into the position remotely was definitely interesting. I was lucky to have gotten to do a co-op with the firm in person in 2019, kind of before COVID hit and before graduating. So I had met the team and worked with them in person, but for the past year, have just been remote, as we all have been. So what I've found to be super helpful during this last year or so has been to kind of, like, I would echo what Joanna said, is to kind of schedule in that time that you missed out on by being remote. So if you're in person, it's much easier to just kind of like pop in someone's office or ask them to grab coffee or lunch or something. And that's what I found in all three of my co-ops to be the best time to get to know someone, whether that's like your teammates you're working closely with, your manager, kind of whoever. So in a virtual setting, it's more difficult to start these conversations, obviously. It's like not as organic. It's just kind of going over to someone and like saying, hey. So how I've gotten around that is to kind of set up recurring weekly calendar invites with my manager or kind of teammates. And it was a little bit weird at first to kind of like schedule in, 2:30, like we're going to chat and like hang out. But it's been really, really helpful, both like in me not feeling isolated at home, like just plugging away in Excel and working, but also in learning more about my teammates, my manager, and kind of like getting that mutually beneficial relationship going, and keeping things like as normal as possible in that way. So that would be my main advice.
Advice, and that's something I do as well, set reoccurring meetings with my VP or maybe the new analyst that we onboarded, and also just picking up the phone. Sometimes it's so easy to, especially for us, just to ping someone or message them instead of picking up the phone, and you miss out on kind of the small talk and what's going on in their lives. So that connection is key, and can't really be replaced via text message. And then I want to shift over to in like other parts of full-time life. Is there anything, like nothing, it's never always just, sunshine and roses, and when you kind of transition to full-time, what's something that surprised you and what's something that was difficult and how did you deal with it?
I can start there. I think one thing that was definitely a bit of an adjustment is that your work is no longer divided into semesters that are kind of 4 years long. I say that for two reasons. One is you don't have those clearly defined breaks. And so I think it's important to recognize when you need to take a break and recharge. It's totally experienced normal burnout. I think I definitely did. And, going back, I would have been more vocal about it earlier on, but then I was able to take the time I needed. So I think that's really important, just to recognize when you do need to take that break. Second reason I say it is because in college, you meet with your advisor and you know which classes you need to take to graduate and to fulfill all your requirements. With work, it's different. I think Joanna kind of touched on this about really being in charge of being proactive about what you want to learn, and talk about speaking with different people. I find that to be definitely true. You do need to be in charge of your own learning, and others will help you, but you have to be the one to initiate it. And so I think it's important to set goals and timelines for yourself, because it can be very easy to fall into a routine and kind of just keep doing what you're doing and chugging away at it. But it's also important to set goals that you keep striving towards and kind of set a timeline for yourself that you say you want to hit it, and evaluate if you did or not, and iterate from there. So yeah, that's one thing I would say definitely was an adjustment.
I think a couple of things. One thing that I think was something that I wasn't really prepared for, and I didn't know this until I started at Advantage. Our chief investment officer was a U.S. congressman, and by nature of that, our firm is fairly political. And I don't know if it's conscious. I think it's subconscious, just the way that it ends up working out. But that is working the halls is something that I had obviously known is something that you have to do, but it never was confronted with the reality of that and what that actually looks like. So I guess, just be conscious of the fact that you're walking into an organization that, these people have been working together for X amount of years, and they have relationships that have gone up and down over those course of those years. And certain people have misaligned as incentives. Certain people have aligned incentives. Navigating that whole thing is something depending on your organization, that could be very integral to your career success. And then also whether you or not you want to be in an organization like that is something else that you have to think about. I mean, one thing that I candidly did not put too much attention to before starting at Advantage that I wish I did is, I think a lot of people think about culture fit in terms of the firm or the company and themselves, but also think about manager fit, right? Does your manager's management style overlay well with the way you like to work? I had a lot of heartache with my first manager, and there were certain things that I really like he was very much of the mindset of, hire smart people, let them do what they want to do. You could be fairly autonomous. I love that. But then that's also conflicting because, you're not in school anymore and you don't have these milestones anymore. And you don't have kind of the positive reinforcement that you get with getting a good grade at the end of the semester or at a test and knowing whether you did well or not. Sometimes the feedback loops could be really, really long. And I happened to have a manager that wasn't great at giving constructive feedback. So it made those feedback loops seem like they were non-existent. And then, it felt like I was just kind of floating for a little bit. And luckily, I navigated that with that manager, and I was able also to move to another manager to kind of permanently fix the situation. But that is something that I think not a lot of people are conscious of in the outset is, how much you're going to have to work the halls in an organization, your manager fit with your overall working style. And, one other point on the long learning cycles, this is one quote that old manager gave me that is tough, but I do think that it has some merit. School gives you the lesson first, and then you get the test afterwards. The real world, unfortunately, a lot of the times you get the test first and then the lesson comes afterwards. So adjusting to that is something that you have to be a little bit mindful of, and honestly be kind to yourself and realize okay, I didn't know that. I was confronted with it the first time. Maybe I handled it okay. Maybe I handled it well, maybe I didn't. But if I didn't, it's not really on me. It was the first time I entered this situation. Learn from it, and then you can keep moving and keep going forward.
Really good point. You definitely get kind of thrown into the fire to figure it out for yourself for a lot of tasks. And as a junior person in the team, you're going to make mistakes. And how do you own up to your mistakes and learn from them? And I found what's really helpful is when I made a lot of mistakes early on in my career or in my new job, is having open conversations with the team about just FYI, this is something that we should not do. And putting in writing and just be honest, we make mistakes, but if you make it a team effort to make the operations work better for everybody, I think people are more receptive and no one's going to blame you. And just obviously being honest with what happened goes a long way for long-term earning people's respect and trust. So now I kind of want to open it up to just Q&A and general questions that you guys might have, or pointed questions for anybody on the panel. So feel free to ask questions in the chat or request your video and audio. I don't see any questions, but maybe I think if we're going to wrap it up soon, I think we're running out of time. Could someone just give last piece of advice for these students for their careers or things to think about? Maybe one quick piece from everybody.
I'll go since I'm unmuted right now. Just keep moving. If you hit a roadblock, think through it, keep moving. You're not failing until you stop. As long as you keep trying, you're in a good spot.
I can go. I think curiosity is definitely something you should be mindful of. Just even a little thing, okay, how does my manager work? How does he really think? Or oh, what is this job really interesting? Or something like that. It can be something really small, but just keep your curiosity up. I think it will help you motivated.
One thing that I've recently been talking a lot with upper management about is how important communication skills actually are. And that's for both obviously your own communication, but also how you listen and how you incorporate that into what you say. So I'd say definitely always keep communication skills and developing that top of mind.
I think mine goes back to this idea of winding path again. Just stay true to yourself. Like if you see value in an experience, do it, and that will accumulate to other people seeing value in it as well.
I can go. My advice to everyone who's still a student at Northeastern would be to really make the most of your last days there. I think I didn't realize before I graduated how much I would miss having access to, the school and like all these events and all the speakers that are there like multiple times a week. You just are totally cut off from that once you graduate, and just really take advantage of just learn as much as you can and meet as many people as you can and make connections while you're still there.
Yeah, I would say be open. You've got this. Like, don't feel dejected if anything happens. Everything happens for a reason, and you're always destined for something greater. So, keep trying, and you'll do great.
Thanks, all. And I'd also encourage you guys to reach out. I think NUImpact, what's so great about NUImpact is it's a very tight-knit community and a very supportive community. People are willing to help you. And I think alumni as well, if you have questions, send them a note, ask good questions, and they'll want to support you in your career and just general advice. So stay connected. I mean, make good friends in the community, stay in touch, and just leverage those networks.
Awesome. Thank you, Mindy. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's a pleasure to see everyone. And I hope attendees got, a great insights into, what NUImpact alumni do, after their career in college and, how do they continue to make impact. We have our Student Impact Fund launch Q&A right now happening in another session. So feel free to head over there. We have 3 other U.S. impact investing funds representing. So it'd be great to hear, how impact investing is growing. This is great on the national level. So thank you, everyone. Hope you all had a great day, and feel free to hop over to another session.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye.